Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Engineering Experience, a podcast brought to you by Paragon Innovations and the next generation of energy brought to you by Rosewater Energy. We're doing a crossover episode because we really wanted to get these two guys on the same podcast. That is Joe Piccirilli of Rosewater and Mike Wilkinson of Paragon. Why? Well, these guys have a ton of experience in their respective industries, but also they have something in common, and that is they're both impacted by the global chip shortage. It's something that's been going on for the last couple of years as a result of COVID-19, but both of these guys have so much experience in their industries that we thought it would be great if they sat down and had a conversation about how they've innovated around these challenges, the different things that they want customers and consumers to know about the global chip shortage, and what they think the future looks like and how we get out of this thing. And so this is a really fascinating and incredible conversation, honestly, because these guys had never met before. But as you'll find out as you watch through this episode or listen through it, depending on how you're consuming this particular piece of content, these guys get along swimmingly and have a lot of insights to share. So sit back and enjoy this crossover episode of each of these podcasts and enjoy the ride. All right. So Joe and Mike, obviously, this is something that anybody that's been following the news over the last couple of years, especially if they're interested at all in any kind of technology or even automobiles, one of the things that's been discussed quite a bit is the semiconductor chip shortage. So from each of your perspectives, Mike, I want to hear from you first, since this is really an area where you spend a lot of time. What impact has this had on what you do there at Paragon?
It's pretty devastating. I mean, components are just not available at any flavor. It doesn't matter if it's a chip that we all think about, like a microprocessor that goes in a car or something, or if it's resistors and capacitors, even the simplest what we call popcorn parts. Can you imagine going to a Home Depot and there's no nails or screws? Or some odd sizes? I mean, that's really what we're talking about. And so the challenge is to how do you design new products and keep going with a shortage of parts? I mean, you got to pick the parts, and then, so what we're actually telling customers to do is buy the parts first, then we'll design it. And I know that's completely backwards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Joe, what about you from your perspective at Rosewater? How has this had an impact on you and what you're doing?
I must tell you, I love Mike's Home Depot analogy, because I live in that world. I've had a product, as and our current product has been on the shelf now we've been marketing it almost 5 years. And I have an existing product. We're selling it, of course, getting the parts for the existing product that everybody knows what that part list is. And I order them a year out, and it's still painful. And when you couple that with, I have a new product in development that was supposed to be done, 16 months ago. It's the same thing. Had I could have just guessed what parts were necessary, I might be further along. And I hear the same thing. Mike was talking about nails and this and that. And I'm going, it's the simple things like breakers. And then, God forbid, the microprocessors and my controllers, forget those. It's like out of control. And it's embarrassing from my point of view as, I sell this finished product, and I keep promising people, they're guaranteeing me, end of 2021, which was only a year late. It's like, now I'll be lucky to get it done, end of 2022. It's in the drag. And I'd love to hear how Mike's experience is. Nobody has an answer. Every deadline is just a guess. It's making me crazy.
Well, I have some more insight now that we are acquired by TTI, which is one of the largest component distributors, and probably the only one left, the stocking distributor. And my sister company is also Mauser. So, I'm and I've been going to a bunch of meetings, and we've had national sales meetings, and I'm learning more about the component business from the inside. And here's the deal. So when you get promised 52 weeks, that's because the manufacturer of the part has told the distributor that. Well, the problem is then the manufacturer comes up short. So let's say 100,000 pieces were promised, and then you only get 80,000 that were given to the distributor. Well, now they've promised those 100,000 to a bunch of customers. And so what ends up happening is the actual employees of the distributor, your rep, gets into these allocation fights. I mean, it's I won't say it's a brawl, but it's no, those are for my customer. No, they're for my customer. There's just back and forth, and you have to fight for your parts that you've already promised. And and it's a difficult process for them to decide who gets rations of parts. It's a mess. I can't express it enough.
I look at it and I keep going, well, can we engineer around? And there's only so much you can engineer around without compromising the quality of the product. And because of the market position that Rosewater holds, I mean, we are at the very top of the market with our product, and our tagline is Rosewater simply the best. I can't compromise the quality. I just can't. And it really leads to difficult decision processes. And, fortunately may be a bad choice of words. The entire business community is suffering this, and a lot of our business is new construction and remodeling. It goes into those. And of course, my projects are delayed. So, with a little luck, we'll get the timing right. But my great fear is one day somebody will open up the dam and I will get, all this product I have on back order and no place to put it because the houses aren't done. But, because people go, oh, yeah, you can just engineer around it as if that's you could just do that like nothing. Well, no.
And so a little difference between housing and circuit board design is the following. If we're missing one part out of the 500 parts on a board, we can't build a board. We're done. So, at least with a house, I'm trying to play that up. With a house, if I'm missing one toilet, I can still build the rest of the house. We just don't have bathroom number 6.
In my case, my product goes in as part of the finishing of the house because I am the last piece. I protect all of the electronics in the house. So they want to put my piece in last. So it's like if they're missing, if the owners aren't moving in because they're missing a toilet, my product doesn't go.
Okay.
It's weird. And
all right.
It has been the most interesting 2 years of juggling. I mean, I've never seen problems like this.
So we've actually seen a record increase in new business. So what's happening is it's kind of like the toilet paper problem. So there's people who, it's worse because the toilet paper, nobody was using more. They just started hoarding it. So we've seen already in the earliest parts of the pandemic, we saw people hoarding parts. Won't name names, but some large well-known companies started hoarding their parts. They had 12-month deliverable schedule, and they brought it all in and said, we'll bring them all in now because they wanted to have possession so they wouldn't have allocation problems later. I mean, they were smart in that respect, but they caused more harm to others. Well, fast forward, now we've got people wanting to get development done and more products. And so we're busy. But that said, you said, how do we design something around that and keep quality? Well, part of it is about kind of thinking outside the box on the design. So if we can have multiple parts that fit in the same spot or put their patterns, as we call them, co-located. In fact, I'm giving a talk on this here in a conference here in a month. And, the different things you can do to engineer and get that product with multiple options. So I can work with, if you were talking about hardware store stuff, I can use this screw or that nail and all fits in the same spot. Then I've got 3 ways to solve my problem if these other 2 aren't available. And we're doing that with virtually everything. And it's not easy.
No, I think that problem is extremely hard. And I give you huge props for being able to design and think that way, because I am running into that, the engineering roadblock where, okay, Joe, in order to get your design to do what you want it to do, this is your path. And then the paths are described singularly. It's the only path. And I don't have enough background in parts acquisition, circuit board manufacturing, and all that to say, oh no, you can do better. I don't have that background. And I think that makes it very difficult for all of us on my side of the fence to not get really frustrated. What do you need? You're 18 months late and now you're telling me you need another 12? I just can't.
The only saving grace I see right now is that the whole world knows there's a component shortage. And so I don't have complaints from customers saying, what do you mean you can't get parts? They understand that's the primary problem. But even with that said, I've got a couple of really good customers that just won't order the parts. And one in particular, we had to make significant design changes. We were done with regulatory, done. Go to production. And we've been telling them to buy parts all along, and they waited till then to order, and now they have these long lead times. So we've had to go and design out parts, design other parts in, go through another design cycle, more money, more regulatory expense. And this particular customer I'm thinking of, they still haven't bought the parts. We're going to do this again.
It's some habits are just impossible for people to change. And I, like you, for my finished product, the demand continues to grow. It's amazing how many orders I have. And that's the frightening part. If all of a sudden the attitude changes where people are no longer forgiving about lead times, or all of a sudden one part of this very delicate ecosystem gets finished, starts to meet deadlines, and my product has not met deadlines, then I'm in real trouble. And the hard part, and you'd think after all my years I would learn this, but really trying to manage people's expectations. I mean, I keep telling people now, I had a call yesterday, well, my project is 2 years out. When do you think I should order? I'm going, yesterday.
Yeah, you're late.
Because I can't, you got to send a deposit now. Sorry.
Yeah, no, your project's not 2 years out. Your project's 2.5 years out because you haven't ordered parts yet.
Yeah, exactly. That's a better line. I think
you're late.
I'll be using that one because it is. And I don't mean to make light of it because it frustrates me on a daily basis. And I'm sure it frustrates my dealers and my clients and my end users. But there is no source of information. I don't know about you, Mike, and you may know way more than I do here, is every time I read a report, every time, God forbid, I listen to a news broadcast, nobody has any idea when this is going to lighten up.
Yeah. Well, my boss, Michael Knight, is well known in the industry for following trends and keeping up with trends and knowing what the trends are going to be. And he's been following this very closely. And, the very large companies hire him or bring him in to talk about supply chain and what's going to happen. And, even his crystal ball is looking at, we're talking, 2023, 2024 before we might see some reprieve. And part of this is that we can't build new silicon fab, things that, factories that make chips. We can't do that until, it takes 2-3 years minimum and billions of dollars per plant. And so even though there's some, like TI's got some happening here in Texas, we're not going to see the fruits of that until 2025, 2026. Wow.
So even bringing on new fabs was decided too late, basically.
Yeah. I mean, and they're still doing it because they believe it's not a bubble. I mean, if that doesn't scare you, I mean, if it's a bubble, then they wouldn't build new fabs. But everybody believes we're just going to use more and more and more chips. It's incredible. And you look at the stats. I mean, my boss has a presentation last week, and oh my God, the trillion plus chips produced every year. I mean, just an insane number of parts.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I look at it again. My product is geared for residential and light commercial, and when I designed this product, it was designed with the projection in mind that houses are going to get loaded with microprocessors. And microprocessors like constant voltage, constant current. They last longer, they perform better, all of that. And I look at what has happened in a residential building from, call it the year 2000, when the only processors were built into your digital clocks, with timers. And now all the lighting, all the shade, all the networking, all the environmental controls, even plumbing fixtures have microprocessors. So it is incredible. The growth of microprocessors is crazy. It's just crazy. A house went from a couple to a few hundred.
Yeah. But same with the car. The car's got tons of processors in it. We used to think about the engine computer, the ECU. Well,
yes.
Yeah, that's just one.
And now I look at it, there's this trend in residential called wellness home. And it is a home with sensors everywhere that senses air quality by room, sensors water quality 24/7. So it's sensing all environmental factors within the house. Can you imagine how many more microprocessors and sensors that's?
Oh yeah, it's insane. Well, the good news is that's my world, and IoT or Internet of Things, which is all this sensing and communicating back to the is right down our alley, and so we're excited about a lot of this. I think a lot of this is going to be a fad like we've had people come to us with wanting to have wireless dental floss. Okay, it's a little over. I'm not joking. So that's crazy. You know that, but you know other things aren't as crazy like a wireless toothbrush. You go, well, that sounds stupid, but we've got them, and they're not talking to a network, but they are for kids to get them into a 2-minute habit and play a song if they complete. And you know, and then when you talk about sensors throughout the HVAC system in your home, wow, we're going to see a lot. And I think some of it's going to, you know, we're going to end up dropping some of these and not be real popular. But it's going to take a while to figure out. Same with the faucets. I was at Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas at the beginning of the year, and you know, Kohler and everybody's got their faucets, and you know, they'll fill up your glass and they'll fill up your baby formula thing to 1 ounce. It's all Alexa driven. And I think, you know, in my opinion, and I'm a techie, I think some of that's going to go away, and that I just want to turn the faucet on and fill up my cup. I don't need for it to know it 8 ounces, because I'm going to slip and move my cup around, and now it won't fill the cup, and then I got to go turn it back on, and bleh.
You know, my children would call you a dinosaur because that's what they call me all the time. So, but it is true. It will shake out that, you know, some of these things will be just fads, but there is no doubt that the number of microprocessors are going to continue to explode at an exponential level. I mean, I'm just shocked at how many things, like, you know, even to be able to wave your hand across the faucet to turn it on, which is kind of cool if it works. But that requires a sensor and a processor to do. You know, you can't do it without it.
Well, you hit on a key word, exponential. So the group that I'm in within the TTI family with thousands of employees is the Exponential Technology Group. And Michael Knight leads that. And his whole discussion about why the name and why exponential is just that. There's this exponential growth of everything around us in semiconductors. And so that's the mantra is, you know, exponential. How do we get on there? How do we do more of this? How do we get more market share of this exponential growth?
Yes. And there is no doubt that that's happening. There is no doubt. You know, again, as I was talking earlier, my product guarantees perfect power. You have my product. Doesn't matter what the utility does. Doesn't matter if there's an outage. And now the number of people who are interested in that because their houses have so many microprocessors in them, and the consequence of microprocessor failure is significant. Has a significant impact on their lives. It is amazing because, you know, people are out there and they will invest significant dollars to make sure that their stuff runs all the time. And from what you're seeing, it's only going to get worse because they're going to have more and more and more and more. I mean, I think as much as I love all the technology, there are some times where I just miss a light switch.
You're talking about the house. Here's when it's going to catch us. So we have the power grid, and we have 3 power grids in the U.S., the East, the West, and then, of course, Texas. And so, which is really cool. But the problem is, I don't know if we're going to be able to keep up with that. We've been used to having these things called fuel stations, gas stations at every corner, and they are the one where we get a lot of power that goes into our vehicle. Well, now we're talking about electric vehicles, and we're talking about chargers at home. Well, suddenly we have these big charging stations at home. Do we have the grid to support that? I mean, your average home may have 150, 200 amp service into the home, but suddenly it might need to be, you know, 250, maybe more, 300. And if you do that, do we have enough power grid to support that? I mean, when the people planned out a city, I'm not sure we thought through the idea that gas stations were all going to be co-located with your home.
I think you're absolutely right. I sat in on a discussion at a utility, and they took it from the standpoint of the transformers. Transformers in general in neighborhoods feed 6 to 8 houses. If half of those houses has a car charger, the transformer will not be able to supply it. Not to mention, not just what's feeding the transformer itself will be overloaded. I don't think anybody is ready for what is going to happen, because where are you going to get all the power?
We're going to get the copper to make those transformers.
Yeah. And people go, well, we'll just get it from the sun. And I'm going, whoa, let's do the math.
Yeah. And that's a common misconception is, I love solar, I love wind, and those are great, but solar only works half the time, thanks to our sun kind of rolling around and, our planet moving around the sun, I should say. But, and then wind is, it depends on when it's windy, and it doesn't always match our demand. So I think they're going to be great power sources, but we're going to always have to have something that we can control the dial and turn up, turn down as demand is required. In Texas, it could be a hot, no wind, cloudy day.
That never happens in Texas, does it? Yeah. No. No, it's interesting because I start from the math, and if a solar panel is 20% efficient, the sun puts 1 kilowatt of energy per square meter on the earth under ideal conditions. So it's 1 square meter solar panel, 20% efficient, which is a very good one, means in 1 square meter, you get 200 watts under ideal conditions. Next time you turn on a hairdryer, look at how much it draws.
Yeah, 1,500 watts.
Yeah, 500 to 1,500 watts. So a square meter doesn't run a hairdryer. So good luck charging your car.
Yeah, and then, the more we can store. So, the magic would be if we had big batteries. And I know we've got batteries in cities. I know San Diego's got a super mega giga whatever battery on the power grid. I don't know much else about it, but still, I think we're just in battery technology. We're way behind the curve if we're going to go all electric. And I don't mean this as a political statement or anything else. Just it's the science, and that's probably an overused word today too. But it really is. It's a math. It's simple math.
The technology is far away, and it's so fascinating because on your side of the fence and on my side of the fence, where we are, supporting all of this fabulous technological innovation, and we're sitting there complaining that I can't get enough microprocessors to even make houses more dependent on clean power. The other side's just not catching up, and that's problematic. That's really problematic. It's fascinating because you look at it, and my world, because right now I got to get this new product out. I got to continue to get supply of my current product. So I'm all about part shortages and everything else. But in the bigger picture, where guys like Mike Knight is looking, he's got to be sitting there going, wow, there's this confluence of available power and what we're producing isn't kind of matching yet. That's a problem. That's a real problem. And that's a discussion for an entirely different podcast, I think, because I don't think people pay attention to it.
No, I don't think the average person really is attuned to a lot of things like this.
Tyler, we've left you completely out so far. Got anything to say?
No, it's better that way. It's better that way. Trust me. No, this has been great. I guess my biggest follow-up question is, given the amount of time that both of you have been in business and the number of things that you've seen in your careers, how does this current situation compare to previous blips on the radar, spikes, low spells, whatever? How does this current situation compare, and what can you draw on from your previous experience going through other times that might be comparable or similar?
Well, I'd say that for me, there was, I can't remember what year it was, but the only other time in history that I remember being a serious semiconductor shortage was when a factory in Japan burnt to the ground. And it was the factory that made the plastic that encapsulated chips. So when you think about a chip back in the through-hole days, and it had the little pin sticking out of it, that plastic was a certain kind of plastic, and it came from one factory for the whole world. And that was a aha moment, like, wow, I can't believe we have one factory that pretty much supplies the world in that. And so when that factory burned down, nobody can make chips at all. And so that was my first eye opener to that. Since then, we've had a number of other shortages here or there, other factories that burnt down, or we've had the earthquakes in Japan and China. But I don't recall any other time in history for me in 57 years that's been worse. It's definitely worse now than ever before.
Yeah, I look at it and go, as much as the phrase is overused, this has been a perfect storm that I have never seen before. We've seen parts of it. Mike points out a factory burns down, and and we learn that, boy, that was a sole source. That was a really bad idea. We're not going to do that anymore. There's a shipping strike, or there are not enough container ships. I remember shortages because they didn't build enough container ships to anticipate the amount of freight that was going to go across the water, and then everybody air freighted. But we have had labor shortages due to COVID. We have had demand spiking up because everything wants a microprocessor now. We have had a situation where we have inflation, where commodity prices are going through the roof, which makes things totally unpredictable. Right? And we have factory shortages at the same time. So that confluence of events is like, I can take a piece of it and say, oh, that looks like 1976, or that looks like 1997, that one piece, but I have never seen this convergence of factors all being negative. I mean, the positive also hurts, and that's demand's way up. But great, I can't supply it. So I would say this is pretty unprecedented.
You're both innovators in your respective areas. What advice might you have for other people who are innovators just the same, or creators, or entrepreneurs, that sort of thing? Do you have any advice for how people can navigate some of the challenges that you're seeing today, whether it's just be patient or anything else that you might be able to share?
Run, Forrest, run. No, I don't know. I think patience has got to be part of it, and then thinking outside the box. What about your products? Can you design differently, maybe, or combine? Maybe you've got too many different products, too many different SKUs, and if you could combine into one, so you're that way. If you've got a shortage, well, I mean, it'll affect everything, but at the same time, you're not stuck with this product available today and that one tomorrow, and then not that one. But you're gonna have to have a strategy going forward, and you're gonna have to, and every business is gonna have to figure out what that strategy is.
Yeah, I would concur. I would also add, we as entrepreneurs tend to be very, very persistent, because we are used to getting knocked down, and we stand back up and say, geez, that was a right cross. I know to block that punch, now. But we have that perseverance, and you have to maintain it. But the other difficulty in the entrepreneurial world, as I see it, we are all fairly passionate. And sometimes we let our passion manage consumer expectation. And at this point in time, you have to persevere, but you have to really be straightforward with managing your clients' expectations, because it is totally unpredictable. And now when I'm telling people, hey, look, if your project's 2 years out, order now. And I'm not sure I'll get it to you in 2 years. But if you don't order now, I am sure I won't. So, it is. And I caution people sometime on projects, look, I have this right now, take it. I'll bring it to your site. I will wrap it, and we'll just leave it until my guys can come in and install it. But if it's in my warehouse, it's fair game. So it's better in yours. So, and that's all I can say. There's no magic bullet here. this is another obstacle, but it requires you to really manage your clients' expectations, because none of us know the answer. We're only guessing.
Couldn't have said it better.
Very well put from both of you. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I'm so happy that I participated in so little of it, because it was just better to hear the two of you guys talking about what you're seeing in the industry and the unprecedented nature of the things that are going on right now. So it's been a pleasure. Joe Piccirilli and Mike Wilkinson, guys, thank you so much for joining us here for this special combo episode of each of your podcasts and sharing your insights with us.
All right, thanks.
Mike, a pleasure meeting you virtually.
Pleasure meeting you as well.
Next time I'm in Dallas, let's go to dinner.
All right. Well, when you're in town, give me a buzz.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Tyler.